Hey, it's Captain Mike over at fishyourassoff.com, and today what we're going to be doing is talking about summertime fishing. There's three things you really got to do well if you want to catch fish in the summertime because it's just too hot. Where I'm at here on the Treasure Coast of Florida, these water temperatures are high 80s, low 90s, so these fish don't like it either. So you get out early, when the water temperatures are a little better. But if you want to fish all day, you're really going to have to follow these tips that I'm about ready to talk about. The first tip I want to tell you about is fishing in the shade. You have got to fish in the shade. The shade's going to be a few degrees cooler for these fish, and the fish are really going to gravitate towards it. So you want to avoid a lot of the southern facing shorelines too, because we all know that the sun rises in the east, sets in the west, and it's tilted a little bit. So it's tilted a little bit still. It's not quite overhead, so it's really cooking that southern exposure. So southern exposed docks, southern exposed lines of mangrove, southern exposed, fill in the blank. So if you're in a residential canal that's running east and west, the northern side of that canal is going to be getting the sun all day long, whereas the southern part of that canal is going to be in shade for the whole day. So you'd really want to focus on fishing the southern part of that because the northern side is taking the full force of the sun. That's what I mean by southern exposure. So you want to fish under these docks, you want to fish under these mangroves, you want to fish under any shady thing you can think of, a bridge, whatever it is. That's where you want to fish. Number one. Number two, you got to get really good at skipping. You have to get your baits up into the shady spots. So you really got to get it way back up underneath these docks, way back up underneath these mangrove overhangs or tree overhangs or bridge, whatever. You really got to get good at skipping. You want to be able to get it back in there, let it skip, let it fall to the bottom, then work it out. You definitely got to do that. And the third thing you got to do, if you want to fish all day, unless you want to just fish from sun up to 11 o'clock every day, and you can do that too. If you want to fish all day, you got to learn how to fish deep. So I'm going to show you the different lures that you need to use to pull all these different things off, at least the ones I like. You fill in the blank with whatever ones you want to use. But so like here's a mangrove shoreline with fish underneath it. Those are big old snook or redfish or whatever you want it to be underneath there. And it says 24-inch max. And what I mean by that is it's very, very hard to get a fish to come out of that shade more than 2 feet. It just is. So if you're not comfortable with losing your lures, you're going to miss most of those fish because they are way back in there. These fish I drew might be 3 feet back underneath these mangrove roots. So you really got to be able to skip your lure back in there to have a shot at those fish because they are very uncomfortable coming out of the shade this time of year. They just aren't going to do it. Same with these docks. So you're out here fishing in your boat, you need to really be able to get your bait way up over under that dock to where these fish are. So you got to get good at skipping, you got to get comfortable with it. And now I'm going to show you the best lures in my opinion to fish this time of year. I would say this is your number one lure you should be fishing with this time of year. This is a jerk bait. You call them flukes or what people call them in freshwater, but we call them jerk baits in saltwater. Here it is right here. This is the 5.5-inch DOA jerk bait, and what I have on here is a weighted weedless screw-in kind of weedless, and that's a 1/8 ounce. This is the brand I like because they have super beefy hooks. It's called Lake Fork. Super beefy hooks. I really like these a lot when I want them weighted. When I just want, I don't want them weighted, I want something that's going to more slowly come down on the water instead of just straight down in the water. I like these. These are from Bass Pro Shops. They're a real wide gap. They're relatively inexpensive. You find them in the bass part too. These are really good hooks for that. And if you're going to do something like that, and you've watched any of my videos before, you know, I think all you need is something light. This is a glow. The one I showed you before was a pearl, but you can go with something darker. I don't really know what that one is, but it's got a dark back and a lighter belly. Or you go something all the way dark, like a root beer or a June bug, something like that. These are great skipping baits. So if you want to get something up in there, do it that way. I also like to fish them like this. That's a 2/0 hook coming out of the nose. Just nose hook them. They get a lot more action. That's a 2/0 or a 3/0. Seems to be about where you want to be with those. When you go a little bit higher, it doesn't seem to hook them any better, so it's kind of a waste. And I also want to show you how to fish something deep. This is the trolling DOA bait buster right here. Okay, this is such a good lure this time of year because there's a lot of mullet already starting. The first pulses of the mullet run happen in the summer, and then the big one happens in the fall. But there's plenty of mullet around. So this is actually a 7/8 ounce DOA. It's called the trolling bait buster, and you throw this thing up current and just bounce it on the bottom like this in the deeper cuts or around bridge pilings or something like that. If you want to fish all day, you can get some monster snook and redfish with this right here. So this is a great deep water one. You might want to fish a flare hawk jig. You might want to fish whatever it is you like. I'm not sponsored by any of these companies I'm talking about. I'm just telling you the ones I use, the ones that I think are best. And in the morning, gosh, this is a DOA shrimp. What a great stealth bait this is. So a lot of times these fish, it's hot out, it's super bright, you know, the water might be super clear. They're gonna run away from a lot of these other lures. If you can pop one of these down in front of them, you got a great chance at catching a snook or a redfish. Just a real subtle. Again, I use DOA because they're right here in Stewart. You know, 20 minutes away from there, so I use them. Whatever shrimp brand you like, use that one. But a shrimp is also a great finesse bait. First thing in the morning, especially as that sun's coming up, right in front of these fish. Right in front of these fish. Because they'll get lazy when they're hot. Just like a lot of times they'll get super lazy when it's real cold. So these are just things you have to keep in mind when you want to catch your summertime fish. Fish early if you can. If you can't, fish shady spots. Get really good at skipping your lures. And get really good at fishing the deeper spots with something that can get down at the bottom where those fish are, so you can present it to them.